A grown man in first-century Jericho hikes up his expensive linen tunic, exposing his bare legs to the midday sun, and begins to climb, and ended up hosting the Messiah for dinner. But if you look closer at the specific wood of the tree he clings to, they watch the prophet and the parasite walk side by side through the iron gates of the richest house in Jericho. But what happens behind those closed doors changes the economic landscape of the city forever. Because when Zacchaeus finally opens his mouth, he uses a mathematical formula that reveals exactly what has just happened to his soul. The text records an economic earthquake. Zacchaeus stands. He speaks. He calculates. He pledges half his estate to the poor. He promises repayment to the extorted. He does not offer a simple refund. He does not suggest a 20% penalty. He commits to a fourfold restitution. Why 4? Why this exact multiplier? Numbers in the Torah are never random. They establish order. They dictate justice. If a man repents of extortion voluntarily, Leviticus chapter 6 outlines the protocol. He returns the stolen principal. He adds 20%. He presses the cold silver coins into the hand of his victim. The slate is wiped clean. But Zacchaeus ignores the voluntary rate. He skips the standard penalty. He goes directly to the harshest judgment in the ancient legal code. He sentences himself. Look at Exodus chapter 22, verse 1. The law deals with stolen livestock. A man takes a sheep in the night. He butchers the animal. He sells the meat. The crime is complete, at the exact financial terminology he uses when his feet hit the ground. At the blood on the ledger he carries, the animal is dead. The punishment is absolute. 4 sheep for a sheep. Fourfold restitution is the exclusive penalty for a sheep thief. It is the legal consequence for an unrepentant predator. It applies to the man who slaughters the innocent animal in the dark, smelling the raw meat, hiding the blood on his hands. When the chief tax collector announces the fourfold multiplier, he is using a very specific legal category. He is not buying his forgiveness. He is diagnosing his own crime. He looks at his own ledgers. He sees the staggering debts carved into the wax tablets. He realizes exactly what he has done. He has not just collected taxes. He has been slaughtering the flock of Israel. He has been shearing them blind. He has been tearing the wool from their backs. He has been leaving them shivering in the winter cold. He has been butchering his own brothers to feed his own appetites. He places himself under the maximum penalty of the law. He names himself the predator. Every time a Roman ledger is torn in half, every time a false debt is erased, every time 4 heavy silver denarii are handed back to a starving farmer, the repentance becomes physical. True repentance is not a private emotion. It is a public reversal. It is not an internal feeling. It is a dismantled empire. You realize the Sunday school version has sanitized all the danger out of the text. This is not a story about a curious bystander. Zacchaeus strips himself of his wealth. He liquidates his stolen estate. He empties the vaults. Jesus responds with an absolute declaration. Today, salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. The pure one has finally ripened. The pierced fruit is sweet. The story seems to conclude perfectly in the dining room of the wealthy magistrate. But this encounter in Jericho is not the end of the journey. Jesus is walking toward a much darker hill. And to understand the true cost of what just happened in Zacchaeus' house, you have to look at the second tree. The road out of Jericho rises sharply. A brutal 15-mile ascent carved into limestone and blinding white dust. Jesus leaves the city of palms. He leaves the house of the chief tax collector. He walks toward the capital. The timeline is narrowing. The Passover is days away. When Jesus told Zacchaeus he must stay at his house, the Greek word day carried the weight of divine necessity. But that same necessity is driving him up this blazing road. He must go to Jerusalem. He must be betrayed. He must be handed over to the Romans. Within a week, the rabbi from Nazareth will encounter a second tree. But this tree has no leaves to hide behind. It is a story about atonement. We treat Zacchaeus like an underdog, a lovable misfit who just needed a little attention. It has no low-hanging branches for a desperate man to scale. It is a dead, splintered piece of timber, dragged through the narrow streets of the city, heavy with the sweat and blood of the man forced to carry it. Picture the scene on Golgotha. The heavy iron hammer rings out against the iron spikes. The rough wood tears into a lacerated back. The sky turns violently black at midday, dropping the temperature on the hill. The air smells of cheap vinegar and human agony. Jesus is lifted up on the timber. The symmetry of these two trees is not a literary coincidence. It is the theological architecture of the gospel. In Jericho, a guilty man climbs a tree to see the prophet. In Jerusalem, the innocent prophet is nailed to a tree to save the guilty man. In Jericho, the iron knife pierces the bitter fruit to make it sweet. In Jerusalem, the Roman spear pierces the Son of God to make his people clean. The cross is not a tragic end to a brilliant teaching career. It is the cosmic payment for the ledger Zacchaeus tore in half. When the chief tax collector gave his wealth away, he bankrupted his earthly estate. He handed the cold coins back to the farmers. He returned the stolen sheep. But his spiritual debt, the years of extortion, the quiet treason, the absolute rot in his soul could not be settled with silver denarii. Restitution repairs the broken community. It does not satisfy the holy justice of God. But to the Jewish men and women pressing against each other in the dirt below that tree, there was absolutely nothing lovable about him, who deserves absolute damnation, because Jesus knows he is walking toward a cross where he will receive the damnation that the man in the branches actually earned. The pure one takes the place of the parasite. Zacchaeus, the innocent one. Zacchaeus can only wear that name because Jesus is willing to surrender his. The tax collector climbs down from his tree, a free man, while the Messiah is taken down from his tree, a dead one. But this staggering cosmic exchange forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about our own ledgers. We are a species obsessed with our own ledgers. We do not sit in toll booths on the edge of Jericho, and we do not collect silver denarii for a foreign occupying army. But we are absolutely meticulous about keeping score. We track exactly what we are owed by the people around us. And we carefully bury the records of what we have taken from them. Every relationship you maintain has an invisible economy operating beneath the surface. We extract time. We demand affection. We leverage guilt to secure our own comfort. And we endlessly rationalize the extraction because we are desperately convinced that we deserve it. He was a traitor. He was a parasite. He was a man who had built his empire by legally terrorizing his own neighbors. We build small empires of self-justification, surrounding ourselves with defensive walls that look remarkably similar to a sprawling villa in the city of palms. The ledger is not a psychological metaphor. It is the precise record of human collateral. When you look closely at your own history, at the sharp words you cannot pull back, the apologies you refuse to offer out of pride, in the people you quietly used as stepping stones for your own ambition, you realize that you are carrying a debt that no amount of personal improvement can ever repay. You feel the physical knot tighten in your stomach when an old memory surfaces in the dark. You can almost feel the heavy, silent weight pressing against your chest when you realize the sheer scale of the damage you have left in your wake. We try to balance the books ourselves. We volunteer a few hours. We drop a fraction of our income into a charity box, and we try to be slightly better neighbors than the people living next door. We attempt to buy our own innocence on the installment plan, hoping the moral arithmetic will eventually tip in our favor and erase the ink from the page. But the chief tax collector exposes the total inadequacy of that strategy. Zacchaeus did not try to negotiate a payment plan with the Messiah, tearing apart families and starving the very people he grew up with to line the pockets of Rome. He is the villain of Jericho. He did not ask Jesus to look at the few times he was actually lenient with a desperate farmer. He understood that encountering the pure holiness of God required the complete liquidation of his own false righteousness. He threw his wealth into the dirt because he recognized that standing in the presence of incarnate grace makes all human currency utterly worthless. When Jesus walks into your space, he does not offer a polite compromise. He does not negotiate the interest rate on your spiritual bankruptcy. He demands the entire estate. Grace is not a diplomatic pardon. It is a hostile takeover of your internal economy. The transaction that happened in that dining room, and the transaction that was finalized on the Roman timber a week later, completely shatters the religious economies we work so hard to maintain. You cannot purchase the name Zacchaeus. You cannot earn the title of the innocent one through better behavior. It must be brutally purchased for you by someone willing to be pierced on your behalf. And that realization leads us to the final, haunting question echoing out of the sycamore branches. A despised man climbed a sycamore tree to hide from his victims, and the Messiah called him down by his true name. The people in the crowd know it, and they can feel the heat of their own anger every time they look at his sprawling house. The bitter fruit was violently pierced by an iron knife, and a sudden sweetness was released into the city. The Roman ledger was soaked in the blood of extortion, and a fourfold restitution wiped the slate completely clean. The wealthiest man in Jericho emptied his vaults into the dirt, and the incarnation of God sat down at his dining table. The prophet walked up a blinding limestone road to Jerusalem and carried the weight of the sheep thief on his own shoulders. The Roman spikes pierced the innocent flesh on Golgotha, and the cosmic debt of the world was permanently settled. The guilty man walked out of the story wearing the name of the Pure One, and the Pure One surrendered his life on the timber to make it happen. 2 trees. 1. Atonement. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the name. Zacchaeus, the Pure One, standing there in the street, covered in the choking dust of the crowd, hated by everyone around him, holding a heavy ledger of ruined lives. And Jesus didn't wait for him to clean up the ledger before he used the name. He spoke the holy identity over the man before the man had done a single thing to earn it. They can remember the exact moment he took their grandfather's land or demanded the last of their harvest to cover an inflated tax bill. If you are in a season where you feel completely defined by the debt you carry, by the mistakes you cannot fix, the relationships you have fractured, or the bitter fruit of your own isolation, you do not have to balance the books yourself. You do not have to hide in the leaves. Grace does not wait for you to become pure. It calls you down into the dirt, exactly as you are, and pays the balance for you. And may the God who has never been intimidated by a broken ledger walk with you out of your hiding place and call you by a name you could never purchase on your own. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from trying to pay off their own spiritual debts. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. So when Jesus of Nazareth, the prophet, the miracle worker, the hope of Israel walks into their city, the bark of the sycamore fig tree is rough against his manicured hands. He is panting, and the desert dust clings to the hem of his pristine clothes. The absolute last thing they expect is for him to look up, to understand the sheer scandal of what is about to happen beneath those branches. You cannot look at the man right away. You have to step into the economic machine that created him. Jericho in the 1st century is a city of perfume and profit. It sits in a lush valley, an oasis known across the empire as the City of Palms. The air here carries the heavy, sweet scent of crushed balsam, an incredibly rare sap that Rome exports for staggering amounts of silver. Cleopatra herself once lusted after the groves of Jericho. It is the commercial throat of Judea, a major trade route connecting the Jordan Valley to the steep ascent of Jerusalem. And where there is lucrative trade, there is the Roman tax machine. The Romans did not collect their own tolls in the provinces. They franchised the cruelty. They auctioned off taxation rights to the highest local bidder, effectively turning Jewish citizens into state-sponsored predators. The system was elegantly brutal. A man pays Rome a fixed quota for a district, and whatever he extracts above that number, he keeps. The ceiling of extraction is limited only by the ruthlessness of the collector. Every sack of grain, below him, the street is a chaotic mass of bodies, a suffocating crush of elbows, shouting voices, and the heavy smell of sweat and livestock. Every cart of dates. Every traveler crossing the district line is subjected to the sharp scrape of a stylus against a wax ledger, recording fees that have been artificially inflated. Zacchaeus is not a low-level toll operator. Luke's gospel uses a very specific, isolated Greek word to describe him, Architelones, a chief tax collector. He is the boss of the syndicate. He does not just shake down the spice merchants. He commands the men who shake down the spice merchants. He sits at the apex of a pyramid of extortion, taking a cut from every corrupted transaction in the region. To the Jewish mind in the first century, this profession was not a civilian job. It was a spiritual treason. By weaponizing their authority against their own neighbors to fund a pagan military occupation, tax collectors were formally expelled from the synagogue. They were legally barred from testifying in Jewish courts because they were presumed to be pathological liars. The rabbis categorized them alongside murderers and robbers, treating their homes and their money as perpetually unclean. The wealth of Zacchaeus is not a blessing. It is the bloody arithmetic of betrayal. He has acquired everything a man could buy in the wealthiest oasis in the empire. He is the wealthiest man in the city, and he is completely humiliating himself. In the ancient Near East, men of status and wealth do not run, but there is a bitter, inescapable irony woven into the very fabric of his identity, an irony that every person in that angry crowd feels every time they are forced to address him. It is a detail hiding in plain sight, carried in the very letters of the name his mother gave him. The dust kicks up. The crowd surges forward. Shoulders press against shoulders. Zacchaeus cannot break the line. The people form a human barricade. They see him approaching. They know his face. They despise his presence. They tighten their ranks. They lock their elbows. If you are the chief tax collector, you do not mingle in the street. You stay in your walled villa. You hide behind Roman guards. You count the silver while the city starves. But today, he is in the dirt. He is walking among the people he ruined. Luke chapter 19. Verse 2 introduces him to the narrative with a seemingly simple sentence. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. We read that name and think nothing of it. But to a first-century Jewish ear, the name is a crushing paradox. The Greek text records it as Zacchaeus, but his mother would have spoken his Hebrew name, Zacchaeus. It comes from the Hebrew root word zakah. It means to be translucent. It means to be clean. It means to be pure. This is the name he carries into the extortion racket. They certainly do not climb trees like street children. They move slowly. They preserve their dignity. Every time a widow begs him for more time, she must call him pure. Every time a farmer hands over his last copper coin, he must address him as innocent. The irony is a daily torment. The word itself testifies against him. His name is not an identifier. It is an indictment. He is not the innocent one. He is the parasite feeding on his own people. And now, the pure one is covered in the sweat and filth of a panicked street. The noise grows deafening. The Messiah is approaching. You can hear the sandals hitting the packed earth. The shouting echoes off the stone walls. Jesus of Nazareth is walking through Jericho on his final journey to Jerusalem. Zacchaeus tries to push through. An elbow catches his ribs. A shoulder blocks his view. Luke tells us he is a man of small stature, but his physical height is only half the problem. The crowd is weaponizing their bodies. They will not let the traitor see the prophet. They box him out. They shut him out. They leave him suffocating in the heat. He is completely trapped, so he stops acting like a wealthy magistrate. He abandons his dignity. He spots a tree on the road ahead. He climbs. He scrapes his soft hands on the rough bark. They demand the space they believe they are owed by virtue of their position. But the man in the tree is not looking for dignity. He pulls his weight up. He settles into the lower branches. He waits for the rabbi to pass beneath him, hoping to remain completely unseen, in the foliage. But the detail that changes this entire story is not the climb. It is the specific wood he is clinging to. Luke chapter 19. Verse 4 tells us exactly what kind of tree Zacchaeus scaled. He does not just scramble up a random piece of timber. The text specifies that he climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. The word Luke uses to describe this specific flora is the Greek sycamorea. This is not the broad-leafed North American sycamore you might find in a modern park. In the ancient Middle East, The sycamore is a fig mulberry tree, a massive plant with low, spreading branches that can easily support the weight of a grown man. It produces a massive yield of small, yellowish fruit that is notoriously hard and bitter. But the defining characteristic of this tree, the detail that ancient farmers understood intimately, the very thing the prophet Amos did for a living, is how the fruit actually ripens. It cannot ripen on its own. Left to itself, a sycamore fig will remain green, rigid, and completely inedible. To make the fruit sweet, a cultivator has to physically wound it. They take a sharp iron knife and pierce the flesh of the fig. He is looking for a vantage point. You have probably heard this story before, as it is one of the most famous narratives in the entire New Testament, while it is still hanging on the branch. This violent puncture releases ethylene gas from the core of the fruit, triggering a sudden, rapid acceleration of the ripening process. The fruit must be bruised to become sweet. If hearing these hidden layers of the ancient text sparks a hunger in you that standard Sunday school answers never satisfied, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the chief tax collector sits among the wounded fruit. Zacchaeus, the man whose name means pure, is hiding in a canopy of bruised figs. He has lived his entire adult life as a hardened, bitter man, extracting life from others while remaining completely impenetrable himself. He has isolated himself behind his Roman ledgers and his heavy coin purses. Untouchable and unyielding, the tree is not a convenient piece of landscaping. It is a theological mirror. Luke is quietly showing us the exact spiritual state of the man hiding in the leaves. Zacchaeus is the unripened fruit. He is the bitter harvest of Jericho. He thinks he is just finding a good vantage point to watch a famous teacher walk past, completely unaware that he has climbed into the exact metaphor of his own impending salvation. If you grew up around a church, you probably know the children's song by heart. Most people read the story of Zacchaeus and assume it is a harmless, because in order for this hardened man to become what his name declares him to be, something is going to have to pierce his defenses. And the prophet walking down the dirt road below is looking for a harvest. The procession moves through Jericho like a single breathing organism. The dust rises in thick, choking clouds. The noise is a physical weight, pressing in from all sides, the slap of leather sandals on packed earth, the rustle of rough garments, the desperate voices competing for the rabbi's ear. Everyone wants a miracle. Everyone wants a piece of the Messiah. Jesus walks in the center of the chaos. He approaches the sycamore tree. He does not glance at the religious elites pressing in on his left. He does not acknowledge the wealthy merchants pushing in on his right. He stops directly beneath the heavy, spreading branches. The disciples stop. The front of the crowd stops. A sudden, tense silence ripples outward through the street like a stone dropped in water. Jesus looks up. The eyes of the prophet lock onto the eyes of the parasite. In the branches, Zacchaeus freezes. He is exposed. The crowd follows the rabbi's gaze and sees the chief tax collector hiding among the leaves like a frightened animal. They hold their breath. Charming fable about a vertically challenged man who just wanted to get a glimpse of a famous rabbi. Climbed a convenient piece of landscaping. They know exactly what happens next. They wait for the holy man to curse the traitor. They wait for the righteous judgment that this extortionist so desperately deserves. But the curse never comes. Jesus speaks. Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. He uses his name. Zacchaeus. The rabbi is not addressing the extortionist. He is summoning the pure one. He calls the man by the identity he was created for, not the identity he has constructed. And look at the specific grammar of the command. Jesus does not say, I would like to stay at your house. He does not say, if you clean up your ledgers, I might visit. He uses the Greek word dei. It means a divine necessity. It translates to must. I must stay at your house. The trajectory of the incarnation. The entire cosmic rescue mission of God demands a stop in the dining room of the most hated man in the city. The grace is aggressive. It is unearned. It preempts any apology, any restitution, any change of heart. He does not demand repentance before he offers presents. Zacchaeus scrambles down the rough bark. He hits the dirt. He receives the rabbi with joy. But the crowd erupts in disgust. A low, bitter grumbling sweeps through the street. He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. They are offended by a grace that includes their abuser. He starts acting like a desperate man. He runs ahead of the procession. He hikes up the expensive linen. He looks for a way up. Someone has to pay the final balance. Someone has to absorb the unyielding wrath. Jesus looks up into the sycamore branches and offers immediate salvation to a man.